everyone, and welcome back to the JoyPad. This is your host, one of many, Tom. I am introducing today because we are going to discuss my topic of choice today, which means everyone should panic. With me, as always, are three of my good friends, Megan, Fleming, and Pinto. We are going to go around and talk about how we're doing, what games we're enjoying, and if there's anything else going on we'd like to share. So I'm going to throw it around to Megan, and I'm going to wait to discuss what game I'm playing until the end because it's going to inform my topic. So Megan, go ahead.
Whoa! Hi, I'm Megan, as you know, because Tom introduced me. Anyway, my general feeling is indifferent because I haven't left the house in a very long time. I'm sad. I miss the outside world. I miss going to Target and buying everything but what I actually need. Anyway, as far as what I'm playing, nothing much has changed. I'm still going through the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Almost done. I think a chapter or two away. I took a break from Link's Awakening, Animal Crossing here and there. But yeah, let's give it to Pinto.
My general feeling is sore because I had a tree fall on me the other day, and I also...
What?
Oh, you didn't hear that
that.
story.
No.
I was doing yard work, and we were trimming branches off of a tree outside so that all of its leavings don't fall into the gutter and block it up.
Yeah.
And my dad was up on a ladder with a saw, and I was holding the ladder so he didn't fall to his death. And
Important.
he cut a limb off that was probably like 20 to 30 feet long, and it fell directly onto my shoulder. So, it's fine. It hurts. It's sore, but I still have full range of motion. And my abdominals...
You can, like, break or dislocate or something.
Yeah, it's a little bit amazing that you're not at least feeling 50% numb in the entirety of that extremity.
I have dense bones, I guess. And
and bones.
Yeah,
that's not the phrasing I would have chosen, but I love it.
Dense bones, yes. Also, my abdominals hurt because I've been trying to exercise beyond that, and let me tell you, I can barely plank for 30 seconds, and it hurts.
That's
Planking
hard.
is tough. Planking is tough, man.
But beyond that, games I've been playing, because that's what we're actually here to talk about. Final Fantasy VII Remake, I am on what I believe is the last chapter. Chapter 16. I have not touched it since the chapter screen popped up, and I was like, I don't want it to be over. So instead, I've mostly been playing Stardew Valley, because I decided to binge watch a television show, and Stardew Valley is like the perfect game to play when you want to watch something and play something at the same time.
Oh, yeah. Especially because you've played it so many times, you know what people are going to say pretty much every time. So
Yep. So I started yet another new farm. Well, actually, I started one a while ago. I'm on year 2 already. But yeah.
Do you support some imaginary state's agriculture industry purely by your own farms? Is this...
I haven't thought about it, but I probably do. I might make that canon in my head now.
We support it. We're part of it. I think all of us share at least one farm with you, so.
It's true. But yeah, that's really all I've been playing. Mostly just Final Fantasy and Stardew Valley. But yeah, Mr. Fleming, what have you been playing? And what are your general feelings, since we're discussing those this week too?
I'm feeling good. Not much has changed in the personal life or anything. Like Megan, I'm tired of being home, but I've been getting a lot done. That's good. Projects and such around the house, playing games in between. I had off Monday and Tuesday of the week we're recording this podcast, and I got to play lots of Final Fantasy IX, because we talked about Final Fantasy in our last episode and multiple other episodes too, but I was like, I haven't played 9 in so long, and I was like, I'm gonna get through 9 again. So I just hit the Black Mage Village. I'm about...
I forgot that was a thing.
Yeah, I'm Pinto and I were talking before this episode, and we think I'm probably about halfway to a third, somewhere in there of the way through, depending on how many side quests and everything you do, I guess, too. So yeah, it's been going great. I've actually really enjoyed getting back to the old games, and when I was debating it, I was like, oh, I could play 7 because you guys are playing 7, but I'm not playing the remake and I'm watching it on YouTube. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go with 9, and then I'm going to probably swing back to 6, and then maybe I'll do 7 again at the end. So that's kind of my thinking. Maybe I'll even take a stab at 8 again, as much as I loathe it. But that's where I spent most of my time from not playing with you guys of our typical community kind of games. Maybe we'll jump into some Stardew Valley together soon. That's all I'm doing. Tom, you didn't mention, what are you playing?
So I again did this deliberately so that I could come into my topic from this, but I, like many, I think, in the country and across the world, have been in a general state of malaise, despite having a 4-day weekend of my own. I was off Friday through Monday. And it was my birthday this weekend too, but I enjoyed that. I had a good time. But there's just kind of a lot of like doom and gloom going around, and we have to do a lot to kind of like keep ourselves motivated and peppy. And I think part of that for me is turning to what I feel are comfort food games. So for me, I've found I've been playing a lot of Madden. And Madden is, to me, I think, my ultimate comfort food game, because I can always look at it and say, hey, here's my favorite football team. They may or may not be good in real life, but I can pick this up. I know the game well enough. I've probably put in 200 hours probably already, because I play of this instance of Madden. Because I will play it until I figure out the 2 or 3 plays that break the game, and then I will just
do that all the time too.
Oh, I mean, it's the most fun comfort food way to play it, because then you will crush your enemies. It's like Conan the Barbarian: crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentations of their women via football. So that's where I'm at right now. I think I literally, before we got on this call, won my 6th Super Bowl with Nick Foles as the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. I believe he is owning in on every passing record in the game. He has, if he hasn't already tied Tom Brady or Peyton Manning for total touchdown passes, he is really, really close. I pride myself on being a shrewd general manager, and I sign all sorts of really good players to 7-year deals at the absolute minimum league salary. Not out of disrespect for them, because I'm sure they're all great people and I love them and I appreciate them. Yeah, when I'm weird, and part of my fun in the game is trying to see how far under budget I can say, how many good draft picks I can pick up, stuff like that. So there's all these little aspects that I'm always messing with to keep myself interested, because otherwise it's just a game that repeats itself over and over and over again every season.
How low can you go?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm always finding new ways to reinvent it, and it's always something that I can do to lift my own spirits, or veg out, or just forget and make myself feel good. So to me, that kind of embodies this idea that I have of a comfort food game. So I wanted to kind of share that with you guys, because it's been on my mind all weekend, of what is something you would consider a comfort food game for yourself, and if you would share that with the audience. And then I have at least 1 or 2 other games that I feel that way about, that we can circle back to me too.
I bet you can guess what I'm going to say, right?
At least one. I've had this on my mind, what you guys are going to say. I'm guessing, and I know it.
We've already talked about it. So what is it?
Stardew Valley.
Yeah. If I look at my Steam right now, I believe I'm at 420 Blaze It hours put into Stardew Valley, and that's not including on my PlayStation 4, where I also have logged in probably about 40 to 50 hours. Yeah.
This is a show for people of all ages. We do not tell them to 420 Blaze It, sir.
If you're old enough to know what that means, if you're too young, don't ask.
Google 420.
They all 420 vape it now anyway.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. But yeah, Stardew Valley has definitely become my soul food or comfort food game. There were points where just no matter what sort of mood I'm in, I enjoy it. Like when I'm happy, I'm like, man, I feel like playing some Stardew Valley. And when I'm upset, I'll be like, "Ah, you know what'll cheer me up? I'm gonna play some Stardew Valley." Like there have been points where Megan's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm playing Stardew Valley and watching BoJack Horseman," and she's like, "Oh, that doesn't sound like happy, Mike." And it's not because I'm playing Stardew Valley; it's because I'm watching BoJack Horseman.
Yeah.
But either way, it's like that is definitely a game where I just it it's almost like a zen-like state of comfort where I have seen and experienced almost everything in that game. Very rarely does something new pop up that I have not seen, but I just everything about it is a comfort to me,
Well, I
basically.
think it's because you can zone out, right? Like
Mhm.
it's one of those games where you're playing and you're doing things, but you don't have to think hard about what's actually occurring, right? You kind of just like, yep, I'm gonna farm today. Maybe I'll go into town and meet everybody at the bar because it's a Friday night or whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
I like too that you brought up two other kind of things there, which is one, it's kind of like it'll fit your mood, right? You can kind of do like anything and play that game at the same time.
Hmm.
So I definitely think that fits what I would define as a comfort food game, because I definitely felt that same way. Even playing Madden, I got when I'm happy, I like to play it. When I'm bored, I like to play it. And the other day, I got frustrated, I got grumpy, and I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna throw 10 touchdowns in a single game with Nick Foles, and it's gonna cheer me up. Just like goofy stuff like that. And then the other thing is you can do something else kind of at the same time. You
Mhm.
can watch a show or I'm not going to say read a book, but you could like listen to a podcast or you could do something similar like that.
That's right.
And I too have been doing that. I think I told you guys I was watching the Bulls documentary, The Last Dance on ESPN, which is great. I'm a Chicago sports fan. I love Michael Jordan. It's really good. But anyway.
Yeah, I've been binging Lucha Underground, watching the 2 seasons I have not seen, and playing Stardew Valley. I do have other games that I'm going to mention, but let's see what Megan, what's one of your comfort games?
I think Stardew Valley would be an easy one. However, I think a game that I go back to a lot, two of them would be Skyrim and Fallout 3. I
Yep.
spend a lot of time playing Skyrim. Like, again, when I'm bored, even if I have something new to play, if I don't really want to dive into it, I'll take a break, I'll install Skyrim again, and just go through the game. Because, I don't know, how many years has that been out?
7.
I think it's just
More
always
than
been
that.
out.
I think it's
maybe 8.
Perpetually.
I don't
I
think
think
there.
it came
I don't
out
think
in,
there
like,
was a time when it
2012.
didn't exist.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like 7 or 8 years, I think, now.
Yeah, so it's been out like almost a decade, and I still haven't beat the main story quest.
Me neither.
Like,
Oh,
part of the fun is developing a character like, oh, I just want like a tank, this brute that's going to go in and destroy everything with like a longsword or an axe. Or I want to be super sneaky and stealthy and, take everyone out with a bow and arrow. And try as I might, I do like I follow the main quest and then I'm like, oh, I really want to get into smithing or magic or this. And it devolves and I never finish it.
I put in hundreds of hours in Skyrim, and I don't even think I've been every quest.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, there's multiple quests where you have to make a decision too. Like the Civil War stuff, you
Mhm.
have to, you have to play through it twice to get to experience the whole thing. So I know I've played through Skyrim multiple times, and the Civil War, every time I'm like, well, this guy should probably go with this one because that's his race, that's his people. And then you're like, for this guy, it'd be kind of cool to do like an Imperial who's like against the Empire and is like, I don't know, I'm gonna go with the
Yeah.
rebels. Like I've done so many of those Civil War playthroughs.
And
That's my favorite quest line.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like you, Megan. I have not finished the game. I've never
Mhm.
finished the main storyline. I just find everything else in that game to be more interesting.
Yeah. Even
And
just
like
like
you
exploring the world.
It's
Yeah.
okay. The main quest is okay. I wouldn't say it's it's okay. Like it gets worse and worse, I guess, as time goes on. So you start out and you're like, oh, this is pretty cool, and then you're starting to like, collect the shouts, and you're like, that's cool. But then like it's one of those games where like as it goes on, it just fades away.
Yeah.
You're kind of like
Yeah.
it's not as important anymore. Or
You-
it's just like it's like an extra little, a box you have to check that you did.
I don't know about you guys, but also just whenever I play Skyrim, I just kind of feel like I'm God at a certain point. I'm just like, oh, why do I care about these petty human affairs?
My favorite way to play Skyrim is to get the skill that lets you behead people, because I love all the little like cutscene things where you're just like, it does like almost a movie shot of you like chopping off their heads, and when you get like multiple back to back, you're like, I'm so cool. That's my personal Skyrim favorite. Any kind of swordsmith kind of player.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how I actually evolved my character, but my one character that I really played in Skyrim, my wife and I play the game together. We like to play a lot of RPGs together. I made an orc, and this was back in like 2012 or so, 2013, and his name was Jimmy of South Jersey. So, and because he was an orc, he has that lovely orc underbite.
Right.
So sometimes my wife and I will just look at each other and just do like kind of an underbite like this. And that's the international sign for Jimmy of South Jersey. We're just like, Jimmy.
As a Jersey boy, I find that offensive but also hilarious.
To be fair, it should probably be North Jersey. I'm sorry. Apologies to
most people say that South Jersey is similar to the South, and that would be a stereotypical
as a man
Southern...
who resides in the South.
Can we just talk about the modded groups that you can choose from? I think there's like the IKEA barn that looks like a chair.
What?
Yeah. The head
on.
is just like this like stump with like it looks like a carved chair coming out of its head, and the eyes are terrifying and the mouth is even worse. I need to find a photo and share it with you.
Tell me someone's gone the extra mile, and when you pick that race, it modifies all of the Dovahkiin shouts to suddenly be Swedish.
Meatball!
I don't know what I just said. I'm sorry if I offend any Swedes.
I'll have to share it somewhere on our social feeds.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
That's great.
That's
it's incredible.
fantastic.
So that's my game.
I've been having trouble since you brought it up, because I honestly don't know if I play games for comfort. So we've talked multiple times, so I'm gonna just quickly summarize. I am a competitive player at heart. In any game I play competitively. I play to win. It's very rare that I'm playing a game where I'm not trying to do my best. I'm not focused on that, game or activity. So like I'm struggling because like I can't think of a game that I play where like, I don't want to achieve whatever that mission is. So like I mentioned Payday multiple times, and I know you guys have played it with me. I've put in maybe 600 hours of Payday this year or something crazy. Mostly because there's nothing to do on the weekends, so I have tons of time. But I've beaten every Payday mission before, and I still kind of just play it. But like if I have random people join with me, and let's say they screw something up in a stealth mission, or I screw up myself, I don't ever chill out. I'm always focused on what I'm doing. So I'm personally struggling to come up with a game where I'm, zoning out, or I've kind of like I'm not in a place where an emotion is going to come out of me from the game I'm playing.
Not necessarily that you don't get an emotion, but like what game would you like kind of sit down to chill out with? Like I know you said you were playing Final Fantasy IX earlier. Would you consider that like more of like a relaxing experience, or like or do you? I mean,
I would say yes. That's probably my most recent kind of game where I'm doing that. mostly because as I get to some part of it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this part of the story. Like I totally forgot about the Black Mage Village until you get to I forget what it's called. It's not Condor, but
PT.
the yes, thank you. The dwarf location, and then they mention you chase after one of the mages, and I'm like, oh, I forget why I'm chasing after this mage, and then the guy's like, oh, they live in a village. I'm like, oh, they do. I forgot about that. And then like as I got to the village, I was like, oh yeah, and they're gonna like talk about death and stuff like that, which is totally depressing.
This game's gonna get super deep and heavy right now on me, isn't it?
Really, really deep and heavy. So that's probably my most zone out game. But what I would say is that a lot of times the way I zone out with games is actually watching people play them.
Yeah.
So like not even me, myself playing a game, but I would, Pinto and I especially can probably talk at length about this, but we both love to watch StarCraft. So I will spend hours of like, I'm not going to play games. I'm going to sit down or lay down or whatever and watch these guys who are, they could play with their feet and probably be better than me, which is arguably saying something because I'm pretty good at StarCraft in particular. And, watch these incredible moves and be amazed at, that level of skill. Or I'll like, I haven't played Counter-Strike in quite a while. And again, I used to be pretty darn good at Counter-Strike too. And I'll watch these guys on Twitch or a tournament or something. I'll be like, these guys are incredible, the things that they can do. So like I find myself more watching really good players if I want to zone out in a competitive aspect. I think because then there's no pressure on me, but I'm still getting that thrill, that engagement from a competitive scene that I enjoy. So that's probably if you're saying what's a game that you just could sit out and relax to, it probably right now would be Final Fantasy IX. But as soon as I finish the game, it's not like Stardew Valley. It's not like I'm going to jump back to that kind of game. I'd probably say most of my, and there's going to be an all moment coming up here, most of my comfort games actually come playing with you guys, where I'm like, yeah, it's like,
there it is.
We're gonna play Stardew Valley. So like we're playing Stardew Valley. I enjoy that. But if you said, or if I'm like upset, or if I just need kind of, to zone out, Stardew Valley is not going to be my choice personally. So that's kind of where I am with this kind of topic. Not saying that I don't have anything to contribute, because I think I contribute a bit, but I'm just very different than you guys when it comes to games.
Well, I think that's a perfectly fair perspective, though, and I think you're probably, giving a fair representation of a good number of people too, because that's definitely it's not my mindset when it comes to gaming, but I can completely understand and appreciate it. And there's totally a huge crowd these days that's out there watching people play games, whether live or recorded, competitive, or there's videos out there all over the place of people just building stuff in Minecraft or something, and folks are watching it all the time. Me, myself, that's actually like the other game I actually really think of as a veg out comfort food game is Minecraft.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Do any of you guys own Minecraft?
Yes.
I don't own Minecraft, but I have a game that I'll mention after that's similar to Minecraft.
So I have had various stages of Minecraft basically since it came out. Starting out with creating my own little pyramid on a personal creation server that had nothing to do with other people, and then finding a way to run water down the top of the pyramid and start a garden going down the sides. And I just kind of made it like as tall as I could. And it was just kind of I didn't have any money at the time. I was just looking for something to fill space because I wasn't even working a whole lot at that time. I think it was like when I was right out of college and I was just dealing with some depressions and et cetera. So it was kind of nice. It kind of filled that gap. And to this day, every once in a while I'll be like, oh, it'd be fun to just like do nothing to just Minecraft. I'll just go dig some holes, see how much ore I can find. And then invariably, I end up building train systems. It's like some Minecraft magic, some latent ambition in my body that's just like, what you really want to do with your life? You just want to build mine carts that connect different little cabins to each other so that you can go dig in different spots. And once you run out of the track delay, you want to go mine and get some more so you can keep doing it. And then while I'm doing that, I did BoJack Horseman doing that. I did many episodes of Black Mirror watching that. I watched all those kinds of things. And I kind of have a hard time myself just like watching a show and sitting still.
Yeah. Oh, I do too.
I wonder if it's a generational thing. I really do because
No, because my wife will sit there and watch TV all day, but
Yeah.
I
That's
can't. I
fair.
cannot.
Yeah, my wife's better at that than I am too.
Did you ever play a game? You mentioned like construction games, and that's the one thing as I was talking, I thought of like Planet Coaster, for example, is one where like that's a game where I can zone out. SimCity, something like that, is another game where you can zone out.
Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yeah, Roller Coaster Tycoon, the building games.
God.
But did you ever play, Tom, a game called Scrap Mechanic?
No, what is this?
Okay, so I have not played it in a while. I think it came out like 2015, but don't quote me on that. It came out as an alpha back then, and I watched some various YouTubers playing it, and I got it too. But essentially what you are is you're a mechanic, and you have different parts. Like, let's say you have a wheel, right? And you can put a wheel onto a bunch of bricks. That's similar to Minecraft design. You put a bunch of blocks together and you put the wheel on it. Let's say you get a couple more wheels, then you build a generator or something on it, and you drive like a car. And there's other things. Like I was obsessed with that game. And again, I've told myself about this, or I've said this about myself before. I love building things and getting up in the air in a game that like is not typically what you're thinking of first. So I loved like building flying things. So I saw, again, a lot of people find things on YouTube for Scrap Mechanic, and that's how they get, creative ideas. Somebody made a flying like fortress-like thing. And I was like, I'm building that. So you have to build like jet engines on the bottom of a bunch of bricks, and then you can get up in the air, and then you start, basically just staying up in the air and building the whole time. So
Wow.
I haven't played it in a couple of years. It's been probably 2 or 3 since I last played it. But yeah, I think you would like that kind of game because you can make, it's very Minecraft-like, but you can build like space shuttles. I've seen people do, like I said, people build like floating platform kind of things, tons of different cars. I think someone even made like a from Star Wars, like an AT-AT or something like that with like moving legs. Yeah, it's really cool, the stuff that people have figured out how you can build in that game. So that's a game where like you can zone out. And just so you know, I think it is multiplayer. So if you decide to get it, let me know.
I might need to buy this. I love anything that has to do with like engineering too. So like anything that's building or putting things together. I think we may have talked before on this podcast about PC Building Simulator.
Yes.
Yes.
It's been brought up.
I have zoned out just to watching people play that game on YouTube, just like how you've described before, Fleming. I can just watch people play that, which is
hilarious how the two people in IT
but I love it.
Love the engineering games.
Another game I really like to play, I forgot about this, Binding of Isaac.
Oh yeah, you get into that game.
I've spent so many hours playing that game. I can't even tell you how many. I know Mike, you've played, or well, Pinto, you've played it, but Fleming, Tom, have you guys played it?
I've heard so much and so many good things about it, and there's this part in my brain that can't get over being a sad aborted fetus. Like I just that's there's like a disconnect. And I'm like, I know this is a good game. I should want to play this game. I can't get over the theme.
That's fair. I don't know. It's for anyone who hasn't played it. It's like an indie roguelike, I don't know, game. I guess, is that the best way to describe it? Would you say, Pinto?
Yeah, indie roguelike dungeon crawler, I guess.
Yeah, like I can sit there and just play that for a couple of hours straight and just go through multiple times, get my I was going to say another word, kicked, but I'm not going to do that because we don't curse. So I'll get my butt kicked, and I just keep going back over and over and over again. And like every experience is different. You don't play the same dungeon, I guess you would call it, twice, and the monsters, they mix them up every single time. But I like it a lot, from the graphics, the the monsters that you fight. I can just zone out to it.
I should try it. It's just a thing that like I get hung up on themes of certain games.
Yeah. No,
And,
that's fair.
well, but often like when I get past my hang up, I'm always like, oh, this game's awesome.
Mhm.
So it's just like I just need to push through the block first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One
so
other-
I thought of one case where, in a competitive sense, it's not even a competitive game, but I want to mention it because it has not been mentioned at all. And Pinto, this is mostly for your benefit because I know you. I think you either beat the game or you got very, very close. But I want to be the guy.
That is not a comfort
Oh,
game.
God,
that is
no.
like the opposite of a comfort game.
To that point, though, no. Here's the thing. I know I'm not going to win that game. Games that are like too hard, almost. That is a game where you're like, okay, I'm gonna go into it and just
You've
try to play
accepted
it,
it.
and I accept my defeat.
I don't know if I can do that. Like if that's what's kept me from playing that game, because I will get frustrated. That's like when we play like Payday and we're like really having trouble like completing a mission or something like that. I get really frustrated, as you've witnessed, to the point where I can't take it. But interestingly enough, and I can tie this back to something you were talking about earlier with watching StarCraft games. Once upon a time in my life, I was in the wonderful country of South Korea and going through some things and some stuff. And I think I've mentioned before that there was a channel that broadcast almost nothing but StarCraft, and it was really kind of a great comfort, and I enjoyed watching that and not vegging out to that, but just having something familiar. Something I did veg out to a little bit was the other channel they had, where there was this guy that dressed up in some sort of interesting uniform where I forget if it was like a question mark mask or something like that, but he would play games like I Want to Be the Guy, and he was really good. So it was just, I don't know, it was really interesting kind of just seeing that level of gamesmanship at a game that hard, and just kind of getting impressed by that and watching the reactions. Like they had narrators that would react to his ability that would be like, whoa, like as he's going. So
it's funny you mentioned that kind of thing, because I think I've mentioned them before. Speedruns. I love watching speedruns as a comfort thing. So all of us here have played The Last of Us. I would highly encourage you, and I forget his name offhand. Apologize to that YouTuber, but there's a YouTuber that's been trying to beat the game, and I forget what he's down to now. It's something ridiculous. I think it's around 2 hours or maybe 3 hours, somewhere in there. And he's like, I know the game. I think it's 2 hours and 52 minutes, because I'm pretty sure he's trying to beat 251 before the game comes out. He may have already done it, but he's like, you can beat this game. I know the game can be beaten. And like, it's the crazy. He's like, so I learned that if I drop this specific way and I throw this brick at this moment, then the, zombies will go running off that way, or infected will go running that way. And I can sprint fast enough that they won't be able to catch me, so I can get through to the next checkpoint. It's like,
God, he has it down to a science.
Oh, it's amazing, these people like in speedruns. But The Last of Us is a really interesting one, just because it is such a good game in the first place. And like that's the kind of comfort food that I get. Someone who's like gone to lengths that I would never go to like basically work out so perfectly how you do certain things, and then just watching them do it over and over on Twitch or on YouTube, where they've actually posted the speed runs. Same thing with like Payday. So like Payday, they'll have a guy, and he's like, I perfectly perfected this map to be able to beat it in 2 minutes, like just flat out. I'm like, what? Like some of the stuff he does is like, how did you do that? And like there are a few mods they'll use where they're like, well, I made it so it, this thing will always spawn right here, so I don't have to search for it. I just know it's right there. But like, it's incredible to me, some of these people that have like perfected every movement to cut just fractions of a second off. So that's probably more of my comfort food kind of
See,
thing.
that's really interesting to me, because I think that speaks to a lot of the things that you brought up earlier and kind of synergizes them, where you have the competitive aspect, 1, 2, you're not doing it yourself, so you get to watch.
Yep.
3, it's technical. It's using the technical skills to kind of optimize your strategy and put it all together. So I mean, just you kind of already brought up all those things in a separate sphere, and then like that kind of experience brings them all together.
Oh yeah, and I personally do not have the time to figure out exact like science. I love the idea of it, but I'm not going to be the guy that's going to, say, oh, if I jump right at this moment, I'm going to be able to cut off an extra 2 seconds from my time, and now I have the world record. But I do find them fascinating, the people that do that kind of stuff.
Theory crafting.
Yeah, I've actually watched the Stardew Valley speed run to get 100% in the museum, and I forget what else they were trying to do. But yeah, it's incredible some of the stuff they come, and it's not like they.
How much time did it take?
I don't remember. I think it was something. I think it was something like maybe like an hour and 44 minutes or something.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up again. Like I said, watched so many speed runs. I might be totally off on the time, but yeah, it just how they've come down to like perfect timing of things. Like in the Stardew Valley speed run, he like walked outside, he chopped like a couple things down, broke some rocks, planted like 6 parsnips or whatever a spring vegetable is, or something like that. Went back and went to sleep a couple days in a row, and he's like, if I get a rain day right here, I'm set. I'm gonna break my time. But if I don't get a rain day, then I have to adjust this way. It's like, how does he know all this? Like he's got it down to a science. So speedruns are actually probably more my comfort food, watching other people play those and they're so meticulous to a level that I just personally cannot get to with that, like, because I love watching other people kind of come up with that stuff.
I can dig it.
Yeah, that's interesting because I also like to watch people play games, but in like a completely different sphere than you. Because like, I like to watch like the Game Grumps, and you're the kind of person that doesn't like commentary over games.
No,
and while
I don't.
you might like find their banter entertaining, from a gameplay perspective, you would get so frustrated watching.
Oh yeah, no, I've watched a couple when you've sent them to me, like the Mass Effect mod one that you sent me. That was
that's
that
Monster
wasn't
Factory,
Shackers.
but
yeah, that was Monster Factory.
Truck
Monster
Shepherd.
Factory is hilarious. So like you have to go in with the right impression or expectation of them. So like they're a comedy group first and foremost. I assume Game Grumps is similar, more
Yeah.
comedy based. So like if you go in knowing the gameplay is going to be not
Subpar.
good, yeah, subpar, then that's fine. But like I would much rather watch someone who has meticulously figured out a game, or at least is and that commentary is fine. But if I'm watching someone that has never played a game before that's trying to learn a game, I don't like that kind of thing. It's like I could go and play the game and learn the game too. I want to watch somebody who has figured out the tricks and the technical details of a game.
I love to watch people rage at games.
Well, yeah.
Nothing brings me more
pretty
joy.
I mean, I think that's personally why Pinto and Fleming like to watch me play Payday, because 70% of the time we're playing something and eventually I'm just like, can't do it. Nope.
There are so many expletives.
Can I interest you in a little game called Getting Over It?
Oh,
I've heard there's a lot of rage involved in this game.
So much.
I don't know if you can interest me in it, but maybe we can interest the internet in my fury at some point.
There have been times where Fleming and I will play games without Tom, and I'll be like, let's play StarCraft, because I know that Tom gets upset when you play StarCraft and loses, and I don't want to upset him tonight.
Oh,
It's fair. It's fair.
what a good friend.
So I will jump back for a minute. So Pinto, you said you like watching Game Grumps. Is there a particular kind of game that you like watching them play?
Honestly, I like to watch them play scary games, which they don't do often, because Dan legitimately does not like scary games, and he actually gets like upset and will get nightmares from watching them, so that's why they don't do it often. But
Oh.
I between raging and seeing people get scared at games and me finding it entertaining, I worry about my own mental psyche sometimes.
Oh no,
Where
don't worry
that sort
about
of thing I find entertaining. But like,
I'm in the same boat.
I like watching people play scary games, and it's not even just I like watching people play scary games because I also enjoy playing scary games. So it's not like I'm on both sides of the boat in that sense.
One of
But
my
yeah.
favorite, and Pinto, I know you watched it. My favorite playthroughs with commentary was Day 9 playing Amnesia.
Mhm.
Is still one of my favorite YouTube playlists ever. Every episode of that was hilarious, through and through it until he got to like the end, and he was kind of like over the game, wasn't scary anymore. But up till like, I think it was like 16 chapters or so, something like that, 13, somewhere in there. The first like 10 to 12 of them were hilarious. I loved watching him do that.
See, that's interestingly enough, that's probably also the same case for me where I do not like the scary games, but my wife loves the horror genre. Hooray me! So we had an experience where we played Until Dawn and made it about halfway through the game. And stop me if I've said this before, but basically there's a serial killer plot, at least up until that point. And Tom is afraid of serial killers. So I went to bed and had a horrible night of sleep. Fortunately, things changed and we were able to beat the game the next day. So everything went back to being okay. But that sort of experience, you guys are probably going to laugh out of watching me play that sort of game. But interestingly, you said the scary games. The kind of game I like to watch them play, and even just other people play, is party games.
Ooh.
Like a
kinda
Mario
weird.
Party or something
Really?
like that.
Mario Party,
Like
Monopoly. There's a really, at least in my opinion, a really good episode of Game Grumps, Guest Grumps, with Thomas Middleditch and Ben Schwartz right now, where they play Quiplash. Anytime they play Jackbox party games, I love that because I actually really just like Jackbox party games in general. But when you bring in people who have like a comedy mind and give them a comedy game, especially two guys who are launching an improv special on Netflix, it's really, really funny. Like I was just laughing like the entire time. It's like watching a comedy special, on TV for me. In that case, I enjoy that. And then the other part that I really enjoy are kind of like, I don't know if I want to say bad games or just strange games. So, for example, one of the games they've been playing is Space Quest 4, which was a game that my dad had when I was really young on our DOS computer. So there's a nostalgia aspect to that, but it's also just one of the relic-y Sierra games where it's role-playing, but you have to kind of like click on an eye to do stuff or a hand to do stuff. And if you're off by this much, you're going to die. So things like that are interesting, but my favorite, and Pinto, you probably know which one this is. My favorite is them playing House Party.
How's it going, dude?
How's it going, dude? Which is a adult game, a very, very, very adult game with adult ambitions and nothing but just the strangest things that you have to do to achieve it, and the budget for it is just down here. So just kind of experiencing all of the goofiness that comes with those sort of intentions is great. I mean, I watched Doki Doki Literature Club through YouTube. It's
I've only heard about
not something
that.
I would play myself.
That game what an experience.
I love watching bad games too, or like almost like history like of bad games or something. I'm pretty sure like the first Castlevania, I think it was like a really bad game where like you'd walk forward and you die. And then you would like keep going and then you die. I think it was Castlevania. I can't remember.
Castlevania 2. I think
Simon's
that may
Quest.
have been it.
It had some great music though.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that is the game that I watched like a whole like 10-minute episode or YouTube video on about how bad that game was and how completely frustrating it was. I think it was that one.
I may have seen the same one because I'm trying to remember, but I've seen a similar experience just with that game where just how strange it is trying to like figure out what you needed to buy from people and like walking a step and getting hit by something, you die in like an instant and stuff like that.
Yeah,
like,
it was, I think, a game where you died in the first touch of someone like hitting you.
And anything that's like it's kind of primitive, right? Like primitive gaming like that.
Oh yeah, it is.
I think there's like a history aspect to it that's fun, that kind of lets you appreciate like where things are now, but also just a oh my god, who thought this was a good idea aspect. It's like watching a train wreck in some regards too.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic that we could like explore another time. But like, if you were to compare, like, say, one of our seminal topics, a Final Fantasy game, if you go back to the first Final Fantasy 1, which was the Hail Mary for Squaresoft. It was called Final Fantasy because they thought it was going to be their last game, and it turned out to be a smash hit. And, back in the day, it was probably a great game, but if you go back and play it now, you're like, this is not that good. At the time, I'm sure it was great, but if, you take that and now you're like, let's compare it to, like, the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Whew.
Oh yeah,
Like,
huge difference.
yeah.
Well, it's-
some old games just aren't that good anymore.
I liked that in the original Final Fantasy, you were able to like make the characters though.
A little bit,
You know?
Yeah.
And same with like Final Fantasy Tactics. You could recruit characters, or you could just use the ones by default and kind of build them how you wanted. So if you wanted a really awesome, boy archer, you could make that. And if you wanted a really cool mage, you could make that person become a mage, which that's kind of cool. I liked that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's interesting that there was that more open sense almost in the beginning of gaming with some of that. So like Final Fantasy, you kind of got on that overworld map and you were just going.
Yeah.
They didn't really tell you where you were going. You were just going. And no one gave you a set party. That's why there's always all those memes out there about 4 white mages.
Oh, best party.
Which is best party. But gaming was kind of like that in its I don't necessarily want to say infancy, but kind of infancy.
Kind of
like
infancy.
console infancy, I would say.
Yeah.
It's toddler stages, maybe.
Yeah. Pac-Man knew what it was doing. Pac-Man knew it was up.
It was more when you started to dive into like story-driven games.
Yeah, because they
Yeah,
didn't
they'd-
really
they'd-
explain things.
They had to figure out how to put guardrails out there.
Yeah.
In a good way. But I even remember having I don't know if any of you played the Final Fantasy Adventure Game Boy series.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Mystic
no.
Quest.
Well, Mystic Quest, I think, had rails all over the place.
Final
but yes, that
Fantasy
was actually
USA.
technically my first. That was technically my first Final Fantasy, I think. Which I was very young when I played it, so it was probably appropriately geared because it was a game I could win at when I was 5. But the Final Fantasy, I think it was called Final Fantasy Adventure, and I want to make sure I'm not mistaken because there was another one that was Final Fantasy something else, which was like a Secret of Mana game that was out on Game Boy.
Guys, there have been a lot of Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, these weren't actually like Final Fantasy. They were like some other series that Square ran that they rebranded as Final Fantasy because Americans know Final Fantasy.
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember it was for Game Boy, and I remember I had the first one, and the first one was very open-ended. You could pick like humans, elves, monsters. I think there were like dinosaurs and like magic creatures. And if you like fed someone a piece of meat in your party, they would start to turn into like a monster, and then eventually you could use them that way. But it was really open-ended in that way, where you got to pick your own party and design how you wanted it to be. And the elves read or magic, the humans had swords, stuff like that. Fast forward to like the 3rd installment of that same series. I think it was a little bit more character driven, but you still had like some flexibility with how you were gearing your people out, how you were setting them up to work through things. But that one was almost Chrono Trigger like, where you got to go to like the past, the future, the present, and then there was the X future, and that's what I remember. Was that there was something called the X future?
Square had one. It was Secret of Evermore. I don't know, where it was like you would time travel and you had a canine companion, and it would change every time you went to like a different world. Like there was a prehistoric world, futuristic world. I don't know. They had some solid Super Nintendo games though. Secret of Evermore, Legend of Gaia.
I just did my research to confirm for myself. So this game was called Final Fantasy Legend 3. Adventure was definitely the one that was based out off of a secret title. But Final Fantasy Legend is apparently based on a saga game, it appears. The third game of their saga series. And you had permanent characters who actually had names. So you kind of, evolved from the point of everyone is just some person with a role that you come up with for your party to kind of the same progression as the rest of the Square role-playing series. So it was kind of interesting to see that evolve and develop.
So I'm gonna we went places. I'm gonna roll it back to our original topic. Comfort games. This is, I don't think anyone else is gonna identify with this one really, except for Tom with your Madden stylings. I like to play wrestling games because I'm a pro wrestling fan. I will every so often bust out the old PlayStation 2 and play SmackDown Here Comes the Pain, which was released in 2003, but is honestly, like, people will say that that's probably the best wrestling game ever made. It's between that and No Mercy on the N64, which I never had. But something about that game, like, they just nailed everything. It wasn't terribly realistic, but it wasn't so far arcadey that, like, it took you out of the realm of this is what pro wrestling is. And they just added in so much cool stuff to that game. Like, you can damage certain body parts and it makes a difference. Like, if you work on someone's arms the entire match, like, and you use an arm submission move, they'll probably tap out. And it just, I don't know, man. I'm nowhere near as into wrestling as I used to be. Like, I was really into it years and years ago. But it's another part of it is, of course, nostalgia, because it harkens to a more innocent time in my life, which doesn't make sense because it's pro wrestling and children shouldn't be watching that. But, like, children
watch all the pro wrestling.
But, like, even WWE 2K19, I bought that. I have it. It's right here. You can see it. We're on video. It's a good game. Like, it was actually very, very good, which is a shame that 2K20 was a hot steaming pile of garbage and no one will dispute that. To the point where they're not releasing 2K21 because 2K20 was so bad that they're going to rebuild the engine from the ground up.
Wow. Good.
But yeah,
that's a good thing.
No,
I wish more games would do something like that.
I definitely agree that it's a good thing. But yeah, I really like wrestling games, as long as they're good wrestling games.
WrestleMania 2000?
Yep.
I thought of one more thing, actually. I thought of one more comfort game that we haven't mentioned. I actually was going to make it probably a full topic at some point. We have a couple minutes here to talk about it. Little teaser. But I miss Rock Band, Guitar Hero-like games. Because those games were... I'm not a very big music fan. Sorry to Pinto, especially, as the music connoisseur of the group, I would say. But I loved that kind of game because, like, it was really easy to zone out. It had a little bit of that technical skill. It was a great, group kind of game to do as well, just to, like, kind of pass the time and hang out with your friends. And it depresses me so much that no console of the new consoles, at least, came out with any game like that, to my knowledge. There
was a Guitar Hero and Rock Band on
4?
On the 4. Yeah. But it didn't have the same
peripherals.
I don't know.
Well, it also doesn't help that, like, we're
not
in college.
Following.
Yeah.
I think they exhausted kind of the best material that they could use for those games, and maybe just, like, music evolved differently. Like, you couldn't put Dragon Force in that game right now. Like,
no.
You mean you don't want to be strumming your guitar to some SoundCloud mumble rap?
You have to play the verse.
The rhythm-based games like were a lot of fun. I miss Guitar Hero. I miss Rock Band. I had DJ Hero for a while when I was
still
in college.
have that. Yeah.
I know
And I
like
was
Beat
super
Mania
sad.
came out at some point. I think it was called Beat Mania or something like that. That was on computer. I
Yeah,
think people could use like their keyboards and stuff for that, like their
Ty-
actual computer. Yeah, typing.
Taiko Drum Master on the
Yeah.
PS2.
Oh my God, Taiko Drum Master.
I still have
I
it.
love
It's
playing that
it's in my
arcade.
closet.
But I do feel like those games have kind of died off. If they still exist,
Yeah.
they're more of like a Dave and Buster, like Guitar Heroes there kind
Mhm.
of thing.
Or if it is, you're either like using a controller like Thumper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that game's hard.
Yeah. And there are a few like on different VR peripherals, but it's just not the same.
Oh yeah, Beat Saber. That's like a big one.
Yeah.
But that was a huge comfort thing for me in
sure.
college. It was a great way to just like zone out and play things and, hang out with the boys.
We played a lot of Rock Band in
We
college.
did play a lot of rock
Yeah.
band. That is true.
I think every group gathering we had was basically like a band
It
rehearsal
was
slash
Taco Bell and Rock
performance
Band,
in Rock
man.
Band. Yeah, that's college. It was basically Taco Bell and Rock Band.
Hey, I told you, Fleming, the next time we get together at your house, I'm bringing all my Rock Band stuff.
Very
My
important.
PS3
I'm
with
so
its
excited.
giant library and all my peripherals. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds great, man.
I even used to like buy the extra Rock Band tracks. Like
Yep.
I have
those are the
bought
ones I
so
still
many.
play now.
I bought Carly Rae Jepsen's "Call Me Maybe" for Rock
Aw.
Band.
Oh,
All right.
you have to, right?
I love Carly Rae Jepsen. Of course you
do.
did.
I don't know if that's come out on this podcast yet, but yeah, I am a gigantic Carly Rae Jepsen fanboy.
It
Carly
hasn't, and now it's here.
Oh man, yeah, I miss those days.
Were you gonna say something about wrestling and/or sports games?
Oh yeah, in terms of wrestling games, I was just gonna say I don't know how like realistic or how into it they get, but I would just love if there's like a feature in those games to like set up your own promos for like some created
Oh.
wrestler or something like that,
That
and
would
just
be
design
cool.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I would love in like a sports game. Is just like more management and customization, like fun, like with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's even fallen more by the wayside because of the advent of voice acting in games.
Yeah.
Like because now
Yeah.
everything's voice acted, so like you can't have as much input because everything's scripted, so it could be voice acted.
You can't
Mhm.
wait. You can't give Joel a really massive chin.
No.
In The Last of Us, can't modify him. Come on.
Gotta unlock some game settings on that one.
But at the same time, the whole advent of voice acting does allow me to hear how things should properly be pronounced in games that I wasn't aware of. I always pronounced Don Corneo as Don Corneo when I was a kid.
Oh, so did I.
It was Don Corneo.
Mako was Mako to me my entire life.
Oh yeah,
Yep,
I can see
same.
that.
Same. And they're like, Mako. And I'm like, oh, that makes
Well,
sense.
I was like,
I see that.
No.
I
I mean,
thought it
I
was
never
Mako.
knew that Eris. I never knew the S was pronounced as a TH.
Yeah, that's weird. I guess the programmer just has a lisp.
Eris. Oh gosh. Well, listen, guys, we're about at our normal time here, so I think we're gonna call this episode to an end.
Fun topic. That was such a
thank
such a
you.
pleasant topic. No negativity in this episode.
Yeah.
Yay! That was my hope. Thank you everyone for chiming in with your happiness and those things that keep you warm during this time. I hope you listeners and you observers, since we're doing video on this one, have some games to keep you some comfort in these trying times. And we'll be here too. Woo! So until next time.
Oh, why don't you plug our
Stay joyful.
social media?
Woo! Oh.
Social media, buddy. Come on.
Buddy.
Come on.
Also,
Buddy.
also, if
Train.
you want an extra dose of comfort, go ahead and check out our social media on all formats at JoyPad Pod. We have just launched our Facebook account. We have, I believe, an Instagram, a Twitter, and we are on Anchor.fm publishing to all streaming platforms.
And you can share some of your comfort games with us as well.
Oh, that's a good
Oh.
point.
Interaction.
I'm a really bad host. I'm sorry.
And Pinta will respond to every one of you.
You know what? He's not wrong. I probably will. It depends where you do it. Because if you do it on Facebook, I'll answer. If you do it on Instagram, Megan will answer. And if you do it on Twitter, no one will answer. Because
If you beam it directly into my mind, then I will answer. But you won't hear it because it'll be up here.
Or if you want to specifically ask one of us a question, just aim it towards that person and we'll
Send us your
relay it to each
Yeah.
other.
We could use some good topics that people want to discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good
That's
too.
true. And a suggestion.
Cool.
I
Good
got
closure,
really
Tom.
excited about just issuing the tagline, so it's been done once now.
Give
I
us
don't feel like
for
Give
it.
us the tagline. We all can say goodbye.
All right. Stay joyful, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.